Today is a pretty exciting day because I get to review a wagon, and I'm always excited when it comes to wagon because we don't see them much here in the US. But in my home country, these are the cars that I grew up with. And living here now in the US for about 12 years or so, the proportions of wagons are actually starting to look a little weird to me, but they're still very, very beautiful. We did the RS6 ones on this channel, but today we're gonna have a look at this. This is a 2018 Jaguar XF Sportbrake S. So you have a V6 under the hood, 3-liter supercharged V6, 380 horsepower, 0 to 60 in this thing, 5 seconds. So I can't wait to dive into this design because I think this is still a beautiful looking design, even though it is a little bit old now. We're gonna have a look at the front end design, the typical Jaguar nose in the front, the side view, the wagon side, the rear, the interior, and then we're gonna take this for a drive. And this car is for sale right here at Clear Shift in Denver. If you wanna go and check it out, I'm gonna link it down in the description as usual. Let's have a look at some of the basic spec and tech of the 2018 Jaguar XF Sportbrake S all-wheel drive. You have a 3-liter supercharged V6 putting out 380 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque connected to an 8-speed automatic transmission. You have all-wheel drive, and 0 to 60 takes 5.1 seconds. Fuel economy comes in at 18 city, 25 highway, and the price for this is $77,000. Starting with the front end design of the Jaguar XF Sportbrake. There's nothing different here from the sedan, obviously. All the changes happen in the rear end. And by the way, the rear end, we're gonna have a look at that, and I'm gonna have to make some changes to the rear end graphics in this case. But looking at the front end here, this being the S version, I love the fact that we have really big graphics right here on the sides, and these are actually functional. So this side is open. Let's see if it's open on this side over here. It is actually open on both sides, and then you have this big grille in the middle with this typical Jaguar outline for it. Also open, and further down we do have a fourth intake at the bottom, which is also functional. So everything here on the front end of this Jaguar XF is functional, and I love that we have the S badge here. This reminds me of the V8 Jaguars, but I guess they have it on the V6s as well when you have the S trim. Overall, the front end of the Jaguar XF, I think this is one of these handsome designs, and I think that's why it still looks good today, because it is so conservative. And every single graphic feature in the front is kind of exactly where you expect it to be. You have the grille in the middle, you have sort of a bumper separation between the top half of the graphics and the lower section of the graphics. And then you have this gorgeous LED daytime run light here that is also the indicator, which you can see right now. And you also have some very smooth, organic structures within the headlights themselves. I love that it's thicker and then becomes a little bit thinner as we go closer to the front end grille of this thing. And also look at the body lines on the hood here. Beautifully done. There's nothing too complex. This line right here meets the corner of the graphics of the grille up here. Beautifully done. Then you have two additional lines going right here in the middle. I wish they had some sort of connection to the features in the front end, but at least they fade right before they meet the top part of the grille, so it still looks very clean and elegant. Just wanted to show you a clear front view of this design. There's really nothing that I would like to redesign in this case. This feels right. The balance between aggressiveness and elegance in the V6 version, I think, looks absolutely fantastic. And you can clearly tell that this is a Jaguar. I think that has a lot to do with the grille design and the headlights making up the identity in the face of this specific car. Now, coming around to the side view of the Jaguar XF Sportbrake, and this is where you can obviously see the changes from the sedan version. This being the wagon, or the Avant, the touring version of Jaguar Sports Sedan. I think it looks fantastic because a couple of key lines that we have here that are intact from the sedan into the wagon that becomes even longer when you have it in wagon form. For example, this shoulder line that wraps around the side corner right here. And of course you have the roof line now as well, extending way further back than what we have on the sedan, obviously in wagon form, but it also slopes down just a little bit. Super clean layout of the graphics of the side. There's nothing too complex here. I also like how the taillights, which we're, by the way, gonna have to talk more about when we look at the rear view. I like how they stick out pretty far on this side of the car. So what do we have when we're talking about the wheel and tire setup here? And this is something that I would like to change, maybe, because I think the rear ends look a little too skinny, and I also don't like the design of these wheels pretty much. They are also black. So I have three different things that I would like to change, or for the reasoning why I would like to change it. So we have 255 wide tires all around, and this is an all-wheel drive. The wheel size itself is 20-inch, but as I said, they just don't have any finesse to them, these wheels. They just look pretty boring to me, so I'm not sure what kind of wheels I would put on here, but I'm going to experiment with that and show you what I come up with. When I look at it from this angle, the rear wheel, this is what why I want to have a beefier wheel in the rear section, because we have 255s in the rear and it sits very far in to the body. I want to have it maybe 2 inches further out, or at least an inch, to have it sit flush with the bodywork and really plant the car, specifically looking at it from a 3/4 rear view. One thing I do like though is that we do have a 0 chrome in the side. I can't see any chrome on this car looking at it from a side view. Everything is blacked out. The trim pieces going around the greenhouse here, all black. The roof rails blacked out as well. You have the sunroof up top, also black obviously, and then you have this black graphic right here. Unfortunately, this is not an open slot. I wish they just opened these perforations up and just have a hole into the hood where some hot air can vent out from underneath the hood, and then we have the Jaguar stamped into this graphics. Again, this graphics kind of suits to be here because we have a line that cuts into the body right here, then fades into the rest of the passenger side door. But overall, I think that graphic suits the overall design, but I do wish that it was functional. Man, it is so exciting to be reviewing a wagon. I want to review more wagons here in the channel. I'm going to try and make that happen. Looking at the rear end of this XF Sportbrake, we do have a very sloping roofline or rear window here. It's not really Volvo 740 90 degrees anymore. We got to have some dynamics in the rear end, even though it is a wagon. I think Jaguar did a fantastic job having this angle on the rear section. However, there are a couple of things back here that I don't really understand why Jaguar did it this way, so let's talk about that. All right, so a couple of changes here that I would like to make to the rear end of the XF Sportbrake. For example, we have the wiper right here, and in this price range, this cost about 70 grand when it was new. I would much rather have it be located up here instead of having it right here, and it's not really an attractive design for the wiper itself, so I would much rather have that hidden. Pretty standard change that we're making in this price range. Then when we move down further, also one more thing, just de-chrome this thing, or even maybe have the badge there but have it be in some dark chrome or something like that. But this is where the big confusion happens for me, is the taillight design. So have a look at this bar or trim piece, black trim piece, just plastic that goes straight into the taillight right here. Everything is fine up until this point when we cut it off with the trunk line, but then when you continue this, then it sits off, it kind of sits offset from the graphics that we have in the reverse light up here. And I'm not sure why they put this in here and not have it continue into the light itself. It just doesn't look like these two pieces belong to the same taillight. Another detail that I want to change on the taillight here is I think it just sits too tall. It's too thick or too high. I want to shrink it down and have it be a lot more slim like we have in the front end with the headlights. I think those kind of changes to the rear end of this car, just removing this trim piece that cuts into the taillights itself and making it a little slimmer, I think that will just do the trick for the taillights of this car. Last but not least, looking at it from a straight rear view, another detail that's pretty interesting with Jaguar is just how tight the exhaust tip sits. They sit almost, I don't want to say centered, but it would be interesting to see if we just extended them a little bit to the sides and have a little bit more distance between the two tailpipes. But that's not of a big deal for me. I think it looks good like this, and it kind of makes it feel a little bit more unique than what you normally have the position of the tailpipes. But overall, very clean design exterior on the XF Sportbrake. Unfortunately, it's not sold here anymore. So this is a very special car that I doubt we're gonna get in the US again. So with that said, let's jump into the interior and let's see what's going on in there. Welcome to the very classically laid out interior of the Jaguar XF Sportbrake. Let's fire it up and let's get some air blowing in here, and have a look at this, how it raises up, and then you have the side vents just twisting slowly as you turn on the car. Details like that makes it feel a little bit more special than just your average, you know, wagon that you have out there. But looking at this interior, it does feel almost 10 years old, and I guess from this time they started to develop this car, it is practically 10 years old, this interior. But we do have a fully digital gauge cluster, and of course a touchscreen here for the infotainment screen. and this is a 10-inch, I believe this infotainment screen is. I think 10-inch in this horizontal layout. It feels really good and it looks great as well. I don't really need any bigger screens than this. And it also has this unique smell to it in here. It smells, maybe it's a British smell, I'm not sure, but it smells very old. It smells pretty old, like old in a good way. I'm not sure how to describe it. Of course, I can't translate the smell through the camera. You have to be here to figure out what it is I'm talking about. But I do like the housing for the gauge cluster right here. The gauge cluster looks very clean as well. We have a head-up display right in front of us. Moving down to this section here, you have these curvatures. These are curvatures that are, for me at least, it's recognizable as Jaguar interiors. To have a bit of a long curve stretching like this. You have very functional, easy to adjust vents with the Jaguar logo or letters on these pieces themselves. Very cool little touch. As we talked about this infotainment screen, I think it looks pretty well integrated in this dash. I mean, the dash has the same height as the screen. So the dash goes from the dash into the screen pretty seamlessly here, and I do like that. We do have some cameras here. Let's click the camera button and see what's going on. We have a pretty high resolution rear view camera, which looks great. And we also have the seats here. Let's see what this does. This is the temperature for the seat and the cooled seats. So you click this button and then you have these arrows to adjust the ventilator or cool seats in 3 steps each. Pretty nice. And moving on further, you have the entertainment, so the radio settings. You have the navigation here as well. One thing about this Jaguar XF is that you can't connect Apple CarPlay or Android Auto to this car, but you do have Bluetooth, so at least you have that. And this navigation screen looks pretty decent, and it is fairly responsive in its touch control, so not too bad. I mean, this will still work as a proper navigation screen if you have to, if you can't use the Apple CarPlay. Moving further down, you have the controls for the climate control settings, and here, do you hear this? Physical buttons for the climate control settings. It goes all the way down to 59 degrees Fahrenheit before it goes to low. Usually it just goes to 60 and then low. So interesting, they decided to take it one step further and go down to 59. And then you have the other controls for the climate controls, the hazard buttons, and you have the fan speed as well, being all physical. I'm not sure where I can see what fan speed I'm in though. I don't see anything on the screen popping up, and I don't see anything in these displays, so I guess I just have to figure out which level of fan speed I'm at by just listening to the noise of the fans. You have the start button here as well, and you have the volume control for the stereo. And stereo sounds pretty good. Not bad at all. Further down, you have a pad here. I am not entirely sure if this is wireless charging or not. It looks like it. It is rubberized, but it doesn't have the charging logo on it. I don't think this is the wireless charging. And behind that, you have this wooden trim. And I think in every single Jaguar, you need to have at least one little piece of wood somewhere in the interior. Otherwise, it's not a proper Jaguar. And I'm glad that they put it here. It's not all over the place. You see, we have this other type of texture up here. So this is not wood, but they decided to add it just around the gear shifter here, that of course that I showed you just pops up slowly or rises up as you turn on the car. Putting it in the reverse, you're gonna get the backup camera that we just talked about. Put it back in park, and you have neutral drive and sport. Further down, you have the auto shut off for the engine. Let's turn that off. And you also have the drive modes here. So I think this is the button for the drive modes. Now we are in dynamic, and then we can go to normal. We have eco, we have ADSR, which looks to be some sort of off-road setting, looking pretty sweet, but I'm gonna keep it in dynamic because this is, after all, a pretty sporty wagon, so let's keep it in that. You have a couple of buttons here, for example, this, which I believe is the hill descent control, and you have the parking brake here as well, and you have 2 cup holders that you can fold away with this little slider right here. The interior trim levels, it feels, as I said, very Jaguar, this thing, and I think it looks good. Everything is so functional in here. Looking under the armrest, there is basically zero storage down here. You can't even fit a marker here because this thing is gonna be in the way when you close this. But you do have some connectivity here. You have a micro card reader. You have 2 normal USBs and a HDMI port under this leather-wrapped armrest. Pretty sweet. Moving on to these seats, very nice to sit in, and they're of course power adjustable, and very much so. I'm not sure how many ways you can adjust it, but you can extend this area here to be longer or shorter, and you can of course move it back and forth, up and down. And the design of these things look pretty nice. You have some nice bolstering on the sides, not too aggressive, not too sporty. It feels like the perfect balance between comfort and sportiness, and the design looks pretty standard for a car seat. But you do have the S logo up here in the headrests, and you have this white stitching as well, looking clean. Moving on to the steering wheel and the gauge cluster. Steering wheel looks nice. I do like this centerpiece that we have with the Jaguar logo. I've always been a huge fan of the Jaguar logo with this dynamic cat just jumping forward. Feels like the side view of this car. You just want to keep moving forward. You also have the pedals here connected to the 8-speed automatic. It is fat where you want it to be fat, so you have better grip up here than you have down here, and the sizing is pretty standard as well. On the right side, you do have the controls for the heated steering wheel, and you have the controls for the cruise control settings, and on the left side you do have the controls for the menu, so you can change the of course it's a digital gauge cluster. You want to be able to configure it, and that's what you do here. You also have the settings for the voice commands on the left side of the steering wheel. If you want to, you can go into a full map display right here, but I don't think it looks pretty good, and it's really hard to see the speed when you're in here, so I would probably not have that on. So let's take that away and go back to the sporty with the tachometer in the middle. Then you have a smaller speedometer on the right side of the screen. As I said, beautifully integrated, and the head-up display up top. On the left side of the steering wheel, you have the lane keep assist. Let's see if we turn that off as well, because I don't like that. Start to shake as soon as you just come a little bit closer to one side, the whole steering wheel shakes. I'm not a fan of that system at all. And you also have the trunk opening here. Looking at the doors, same thing there. We have a little bit of this Jaguar wood coming back in the door panel at the top side. We also have a premium sound system in this one. Overall, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the door design of this Jaguar. It just looks very straight, horizontal, all over the place. I wish they could have added some more dynamic and elegant lines into the door panels. So looking up top here, we do have this massive sunroof that goes all the way back to the headrests of the passengers, and I'm going to close this right now. And you also have somewhere, if you like to keep this open, too much sun in here, you have somewhere to put your shades in this little pocket. So with that said, let's jump into the back seats. This is going to be interesting. I have no idea if I'm going to fit behind my own driving position. I'm pretty comfortable right here, so let's jump back and figure it out. All right, the moment of truth. Do I fit behind my own driving position? And look at this. I have plenty of space back here, and this is the better. I think the sedan probably has the same amount of space, maybe not exactly the same amount of headroom, but the headroom here is enormous, and I also have plenty of leg space. You have these pockets in the seats in front of you. Looking down here, this is where it becomes really fancy, because we have 4-zone climate controls in this car. And you also have heated seats for both sides in 3 different levels. Absolutely fantastic. You also have 2 cigarette outlets on each side. I don't think I've ever seen that in a back seat, to have 2 of them, 1 for each side, cigarette outlets, but that's what we have here. You also have the controls for the fan speed and where you want the air to blow out from. Moving to the center here, if you fold this down, you have a very low armrest. It sits super low, but you do have 2 cup holders here for your drinks. Let's open this up real quick and see the space that we have back here, and it is absolutely huge and deep. It goes so deep, this space. This is what I miss about wagons, having this amount of space. Because think about it, why would you pick a crossover SUV that sits high? You're never gonna, 99.9% are never gonna take it off-road anyway, and it just doesn't drive as well as a wagon. I don't understand why wagons aren't that more popular here in the States. I think we just need to give them the chance to buy more wagons, and they're gonna come around. But perfect space back here, even though we have this very sloping rear window, and you also have some cargo netting here on the sides. All right guys, it is that time, and by the way, this has soft closed doors, so just do it like that and close it by itself. Very Jaguar-ish. I like that. I don't have to slam the doors. Under the hood, we have a 3-liter V6, which is supercharged in typical Jaguar ways to put out 380 horsepower. And 0 to 60, as I said earlier, is done in 5 seconds. I'm not sure how to put it in manual. Let's do that here. Do we have to pull it up? How do we go into sport? There we go. We're into sport. Have to just pull it down, push it down, and then twist it to make sure. Do you really want to use the pedals or no? There's no one behind us. We have a green light up ahead. Let's go down to second gear and let's go. Okay. It pulls as you would expect a 390 horsepower wagon to pull. I mean, it's quick, but by modern standards, it's not really that fast anymore. 5 seconds to 60, but it sounds good. And I mean, you can't get away from the fact that this is going to be so much more fun than just buying a crossover SUV that has the same amount of power, because you can't do this in the corners. This is what wagons are all about, sport wagons. Oh yeah, feels nice. And look at this. I'm gonna cruise by here so you can appreciate this design of the 458 Italia. Oof, it's such a beauty, that car. The 458, I'm gonna go off on a tangent here because I just saw that car, but the 458 Italia is, in my book, up there with the timeless design of the 250 GTOs. I mean, yes, I said it. That's how beautiful the 458 is to me. It's just a stunning design that's gonna be just as good looking in 50 years as it is today or when it came out in 2010. So let's go down to first gear here. We got some traffic. We have an IX in front of us. At least I'm looking at the rear end of it. Gearbox feels very nice. It feels proper snappy. And the thing with this interior is, I don't know why, but it feels older than, and I'm not sure why this came up here on the screen now. These are the wheels I want on this XF in this demo picture here. The interior here, it feels a lot older or more vintage than it is. And I'm not entirely sure why. It feels like this should not have a digital gauge cluster, but it does. And I think that has to do with this traditional vintage styling philosophy of Jaguars, of both, I would say, the exteriors and the interiors as well. This 10-inch screen, I think it works perfectly. And I do like that it popped up just a demo image of a beautiful XF Sportbrake when I'm not using it for anything else. So let's take this opportunity here and make a quick little U-turn, because I don't think anybody's coming that way. Nobody's behind me. Here we go. Turning radius is pretty large, to be honest. I'm not sure if this wheelbase is more longer than normal. Downshift a second. So you can make V6s sound fantastic if you want to. And I think with a supercharger on it, that's exactly what it does. But I feel special right now because I'm driving something that nobody else is driving. Everybody's driving trucks, SUVs. I can't really hear the supercharger noise though. I wish I heard that a little better. Like we have the whining noise. I can hear it a little bit, but it's not like Hellcat screaming supercharger. These seats, even though I said they look fairly traditional in its styling, they're very comfortable. And I don't think I would have any problem sitting in here for a pretty long time. Just go for a road trip or something like that. And I also have the storage to put whatever I want for a long road trip if I want to. So this beauty of a wagon is for sale right here at ClearShift. It's got just under 23,000 miles on it, and it is a very, very special car. So if you're interested in this, go and check it out. I'm gonna link it down in the description for you. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.